Hey, welcome back to the channel. Got some really cool knives here we're going to look at today. Each knife is paired up because we're going to do kind of a comparison. And I called this video New and Old. And so we're going to look at an old pattern, vintage, pre-1940. I think, yeah, all of these are pre-1940 with more modern knives. Some brand new, some date back to the 80s, but um, basically you're looking at an old pattern compared to a new pattern to see, what are the differences, how do they compare, and should be pretty interesting video. Some really nice knives here, so I hope you check out the video.
Conley's been doing some butt exercises lately, and it's really working. Conley, you want to show him? Oh my girl, look at the butt. Shake it for me. Let me see. Turn around. Woo!
All right, once again, welcome back to the Fortified Castle. Hi to all my viewers. Bonjour, privet, guten tag, hola, ciao, and konnichiwa to my foreign viewers, and good day, mate. And we're going to look at each set of these knives and compare them. I may have to move the knives out of the picture. I don't know. I got this crazy background, and it may mess up the focus a little bit, but we'll get into it and see what we can do. So first up, we have this pen knife here. This is just awesome. Man, I tell you what, I bought this, and one of the purchases I don't regret. You can see there, it's a Mazzarine. It's an Italian company, and the bone on this is just phenomenal. Look at that. Some nice brass pins, brass liners. This is a pretty well made knife. No shield, but why would you want to ruin that beautiful custom jigging, with a shield? Just a beautiful little knife. So you've got two pen blades on a pen knife. What is this? I can't remember the blade steel on this. I want to say this is 4116, probably German steel, but I'm not really sure now, so I should have researched that. So you got a nice even pull, well made pen knife, good grind lines, good high polish on it. I didn't wipe this down. I should have wiped it down. It looks kind of cloudy, but it's not. It's just a little dirty. And that's your pen knife right there. You've got good snap, good walk and talk on this knife. Very smooth action. Very nice knife. So how does that compare with the old New York Knife Company knife? So this is probably dates pre-1928, definitely pre-1935. And you have genuine bone again. This has a pen shield on it right there. Nicely done. Nickel silver bolsters, nickel silver pens, brass liners, and it is very well made. One way you can tell, let's zoom in here. Look at the, come on, there you go. You see the gap where the spacer is next to the back spring, and there is no gap. It is very, very tight on that right there, and that's an indication of how well made the knife is. You've got a nice spear point blade, long pull on it. There's the good walk and talk. So the walk and talk is heavier, and you have a half stop right here. I wonder if we have that on the other one. Let's look at that real quick. There's no half stop on this one. Half stops require a little bit more work, and so I think you could see that there's a little more work on this knife than on the new one. Very smooth action. It's that walk and talk. Nice transitions there. This is on the curve, so it rounds over a little. So first, it's kind of unusual to have bone on penknives. So penknives usually had some type of plastic, mother of pearl, wood, because ebony can be really nicely, almost mirror polished and smooth. The grain is so tight on it, so you really didn't get a lot of this right here bone on pen knives, and so that is a little unusual. And which is why I bought this knife right here. You just don't see bone on a penknife very often. It's like bone on a modern folder. You don't see it very often. But one of the things you'll notice is how big this thing is. So guys nowadays are just love big thick bone. I think they loved it in the past. And the Germans and the English especially had really thick, aggressive bone that they put on knives. But again, it wasn't put on little knives like this, little pen knives. And so this is kind of blocky compared to this. The plus side is it's a lot easier to hold because it's a little wider than this little thin pen blade right here. So just some different ideas on how to do things. Of course, this was a hammer forged blade. See if we can pick that out. You can see there it pushes in there and it pushes in here. And so these were hammer forged and then ground. And these are just stamped out or maybe laser stamped. I don't know. But you can see that they're a lot more angular on how they look, a lot more precise. You can see the blade right there. Really nice work on the blade though. But that's how they differ. Which is better? I think the New York Knife Company knife is built better by and large through any matrix that you would apply to it. But this is a pretty good knife too. Let's move on to the next one. Another interesting matchup is with the Barlows here. I think these are both 3 3/8. Kind of a standard size for a Barlow. Yeah. That's 3 3/8, and this is 3 3/8. So here's your two Barlows. One is pretty old. This is a Russell Barlow right here. Now, bone, smooth bone was typical on Barlows, but this has been worn, and you can just see some marks right here. You see them? Those are saw marks, and they usually just sawed them. Nothing really fancy. This knife has steel bolsters, steel pins, and steel liners. And that was kind of the norm back in the day to have, all of that stuff was just carbon steel. On more expensive knives, this might be nickel silver with nickel silver pins and brass liners, occasionally nickel silver liners. But the Barlow's back in the day was considered a boy's knife, and so these were mainly bought for young men. Perhaps some older men bought these who liked to whittle and just used them to whittle or whatever, but they were a less expensive knife overall. You've got a really good snap on this knife, and you have a half stop that's well done, so it's flat across here. Kind of remember the age of this knife, which this knife would date probably pre-1920. Could be a little older, but probably pre-1920. And let's look at this one. This is a case. This is pretty new. What is that? So that's a 2019 case. And it has bone too, but prettier jigged. You have brass pins, brass liners, and nickel silver. All of those materials are really an upgrade over the carbon steel, mainly because of their corrosion um, prevention on these knives. Both of them have really thick bolsters, if you'll notice that. And that's pretty neat. Both of them have, which I just grabbed a Barlow, but both of these bolsters are stamped. You can see the difference. This is a lightly etched, probably laser engraved stamp on here. This is stamped with a metal die, but you can see how primitive that looks compared to this stamp right here. So modern techniques allow you to do a much better job at stamping, and both sides of the bolsters were stamped. You don't see that nowadays, but it wasn't too uncommon back in the day to do this, to double stamp it. So let's just look at the case real quick. It doesn't have a half stop, but it's improperly done. You can see the back spring sit up. It's not supposed to, right? So on a half stop, it's supposed to be flat across there, so it doesn't catch you or cut you. And that's just manufacturers happen to cut steps out of making a knife to save money, to make them affordable to the masses. We are the masses. You look down in there, it's just kind of a brushed. It is a polish, but it's kind of a brush, not mirror polish. And of course this is. Now the blade and the back have a really nice mirror polish to it. You can see that right there. Look at this real quick. Again, these are stamped blades, pretty even. Let's take a look at this blade real quick. And you can see what I'm talking about here. So this is not shaved or anything. It's a single blade, but you can see it's kind of wobbles in there. Can you pick up on that as you look down it? And that's because they're hammer forged. And so this was probably stamped out, but the blade is then hammer forged, and you get kind of an irregularity there. A lot of people would argue that hammer forged is still better than the steel that we use today. So yeah, that's an interesting look at how Barlows differ. So this is a group of knives that kind of surprised me. We'll start with the old one first. So this is a Serpentine jack. They're single bladed, and they're very slim. And this model dates to 1924. This is a Utica Knife and Razor Company knife. And so this company became Powell Cutlery Company, is what this company became. So this is a very early Powell with the original marking of the company on it. You can see some really nice irregular jigged bone on here. Really nice. Brass pins. You have a nickel silver shield there. I believe that is glued on. That's kind of interesting. It's set down in the bone, but it's glued on. It's lasted all these years. Nickel silver bolsters on this one. So pretty nice knife. Look at that very thin clip profile on this California clip. And again, you can see this is a hammer forged blade with nice long prominent swedging on it. Really cool old knife. There's a little worm groove there. Mostly you got a little bit of snap there, very tiny. This is a lazy blade here. You do have some coming down, but then we look at this one, and the amazing thing is same pattern of knife. This is a slim jack, Serpentine jack, And these things were always around 4 inches. You could see these are almost exactly the same size. If you open it up, the blades are the same size. These are a little less than 4 inches, the blades. And these are not meant for really hard use. You can see the case seems to be has a higher blade on it. It's wider across here, but actually this has got a lot of wear on it, so the toil's pretty much gone there, and that's the amount of blade wear that's on this knife. A lot smaller nail nick on the case, but a bigger bolster. The case has brass liners, and the shield is glued. This is an 82, so they had quit pinning the shields by that time. Brass liners in it. Yeah, nice. Still a nice knife. You can see a slight amount of stepping there. It's smooth across there though. This could even be an age factor. I think I'd say that's pretty good. And there's your tang stamp on this one. So yeah, the surprising thing about this is how similar these knives are. Just incredible. 1924, 1982, 60-year difference in how these knives, in the age of these knives, and yet they're very, very similar. I like the bolster. I think that's better. I'd say this is probably a better made knife, even though it's not pinned. Usually your shields were pinned back in this time frame, 1920s, but this one is glued. Just different manufacturers doing different things. One thing I notice about this is the curve here is much more acute than on the case. So the curve on the case is a little more subtle, doesn't rise quite as rapidly as this one right here. And then the curve around here is a little bit more than on the case. So the case is more rounded. You have more kind of almost like a sharp point here, a bird's head, than you do on a case. The case is kind of rounded there. So just a little more aggressiveness. That's one way you could tell an old knife. You know, they just seem more like this was just somebody working in a garage making a knife. And these are more like factory made. So anyhow, I'd probably say the case is an improved version of this in this instance. And let's look at the final one. Next is a moose pattern. Moose pattern is a type of opposite end knife, meaning you have a blade at each end. That is the definition of a pen blade, but these are so big that they call them opposite end knives. And a moose was a large, robust knife, very similar to a muskrat. But from the start, these mooses were 4¼ or bigger, and had very wide blades on them. As you can see right here, they came with a clip and some type of skinning blade. This one is a spear point. Sometimes they were spay blades. Sometimes they were skinning blades, just plain skinning blade. They called them Texas skinning blades. And usually they're going to have a bone, but they could also be wood, and some of them were even in celluloid. This is a Canton cutlery. It would date between prior to 1920. Very good action, very strong action on this knife, very well made, with brass pins, brass liners, and nickel silver bolsters. They were equal in, so they were easy to pocket. But the scales on this knife are beautiful, but they were these have been replaced at some point in this knife's history. Whoever did it did a great job. And let's look at the new model. So this is a muskrat. This is a Rosecraft knife called a briar patch. And we'll open it up here. You can see it has that same equal in design. Now, not all muskrats in in yesteryear were equal-ended. Some were serpentine, but most of them were equal-end. That's how the pattern came out. That's what it was. And you can see here, there's a really cool innovation here that Rosecraft has done. Man, let me get this thing out here. So this is a ram's foot blade, and so it's not a skinning blade. It's not a sheep's foot, which I don't ever recall seeing an original vintage muskrat with a sheep's foot blade. So this is really made more to be a working knife with the addition of this lamb's foot here. I think it's a great addition, and how we can look at these vintage knives in the past and make a modern interpretation on them. Some of the other things is this is a integral liner, so the liner and the bolster are one piece, and that was not unheard of back in the day. But on these bigger knives, they usually were separate pieces, a liner and a bolster. Both of these knives are well made. This is bone, but it's smooth bone, and you have a nice shield here. And the thing about these modern moose patterns, this is 4 1/4 inches, and this is a small moose. This is 3 7/8 inches, and it's a large moose for today. So as time went, these moose patterns have steadily just decreased in size, and a lot of them aren't even in this range right here. A lot of the mooses today you'll find will be in the 3 3/4 range. So that's the thing that's changed on them. But they were meant to be, muskrat was for light skinning. These were an idea that, hey, let's take this great idea of having 2 blades and beef it up. You could definitely use this to skin a deer easily. And that was kind of the idea, just a more robust knife. And both of them really, really nice knives. So that's it. That's how the new and the old compare. What's kind of surprising is how close together they are, isn't it? It's kind of really surprising. Different materials, different manufacturing processes, in some ways much more precise, and in other ways not as precise. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I like doing things like this where I compare different patterns from yesteryear and today. I think it's educational, eye-opening sometimes. Thanks again for all your support, your likes, your shares, your comments, and we'll see you in the next video.